I'm thrilled to dive into the pitch deck with bilingual filmmaker and multimedia artist from Mexico City, Alexandra Velasco. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tammy. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and meet with you.
Yeah, so am I. I'm excited to dive into the pitch deck because, there's probably questions about like, how do you do it and what goes in it? But first, I'd like to start with you. You as a filmmaker, like how did you get into filmmaking and then ultimately, now starting to, as another resource probably, doing pitch decks?
Well, I love film. I love movies. I love immersing myself in the world of different characters, getting involved in stories that maybe I would never live, new worlds that open up to me because of movies. So I've always been obsessed with movies. But I never really thought I could be a filmmaker because I didn't really see myself represented in that sphere. I always imagined that it was unattainable because it was always like men or, especially like white men. And I just didn't see myself as a director. And then thankfully, I went to university in New York. I went to Parsons, and I was studying graphic design.
Uh-huh.
But I always knew that I had that passion for the moving image, and I had a teacher who was my video art teacher, Susan Weller, and she really opened up the world of audiovisual creation to me. Making it accessible in the way of video art. You can have a low budget, you can be the star yourself. All you need is like a tripod and a camera and minor editing technique. And that is how I started making my audiovisual practice through performance art and documenting it through video. And then it changed to making a short film for my senior thesis, and I realized that I could do it, that it wasn't unattainable, that I just needed a little push and a couple of people to believe in me. And from then on, I kind of just snowballed from there. It's been hard, but it's been super fun.
Yeah, I saw like a reel on Instagram about that. Come on, do filmmaking. It's going to be hard, and it's not for, the weak here. I mean, you really got to persevere and keep at it, and a lot of times fund your own films until you start to make a name for yourself. So why don't we dive into what is a film pitch deck?
For sure. Well, a film pitch deck is the initial visual representation of your story, right? So it all starts with an idea, and then it moves on to the script, perhaps. And then once you have the script and you want to get some funding or you want to express the mood or the tone of your film or like kind of what it's going to look like or what kind of movies it references, then you get a pitch deck, right? And that pitch deck has reference images, source images from other films or from Pinterest or Google Images or some other, like a lot of websites. You can just browse the internet, or they can be actually even pictures, things that you see on the street or paintings that you like, anything that kind of references the mood, the tone, how the world is going to be. And pitch decks are majorly used to share to investors and secure funding. But I also find that it is great to communicate with your producer, your director of photography, your production designer, costume designer. I mean, the gaffer for the lighting. It just, sometimes it's hard to express with words. And when you have the images, it just makes sense. So I love pitch decks because they're like, the initial movie.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. that. I get that there's the pitch deck and then there's mood boards, but kind of it seems like a little bit that they can both be intertwined, because the pitch deck is really the same thing as the mood board. It's showing you potentially what the film could look like and potentially who could be in it. Sometimes I'm sure that they're picking like a star like this to play this role. I've seen a couple of your pitch decks. They're beautiful. I mean, really
Thank you.
beautiful. I mean, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I could get into pitch decks. And then I saw yours and I was like, no. This is like a whole nother level. The feel and the textures that you put as the background. I was like, how the heck did she create all that? That is beautiful. Maybe we could go dive into whose responsibility is it to do a pitch deck? Is it the producer? Is it the director? Like if they weren't hiring you to do it, who typically is in charge of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all depends, but definitely it's a collaboration between the director who has the vision and then a graphic designer, unless the filmmaker has some graphic design experience and then, it's easy for them to do. But I do find, because I've done my own decks for my own films, but I definitely put more effort into the films of other directors. And also there's the sense of collaboration always lifts up a project. And that's what filmmaking is, right? Essentially, it's a collaborative project. So if there is the budget, getting more people in your team that share your visual aesthetic always elevates a project. So I do say, and pitch decks are an investment, but the whole point is that you get the investment back in a lot of ways. So I do recommend hiring someone that has graphic design experience that you can easily communicate with, and that will just elevate your pitch deck times 100,
Yes, especially when I looked at yours and I looked at other people's, I was like, it's a game changer. Anyone could probably put together one, but that doesn't mean that it really sells the project. Let's kind of break down the key components that go into a pitch deck. I know that like there's the brief summary of the plot, you have the character bios, who are they, key scenes, visually, breakdown typically of the expenses, what other movies represent those expenses, because you're kind of comparing your movie to other people's movies that were in the same range of the budget. You don't bring a $10 million movie to a, $1 million budget that you have. So try to...
Exactly.
Right. And then promotion, possibly marketing strategies that you have, and then the filmmakers and the teams. When you're you're working with somebody, do they give you all the written stuff like the summary, the characters, or are you kind of collaborating with them to help them write that?
Great question, Tammy. Yeah. Normally I ask them for all of that information. So, a Google Doc, for example, that has the log line, the synopsis, a little description of the world, character descriptions, about the filmmaker or about the team. And then if they do want to add some financial projections or, the amount of money that they need, or maybe a breakdown of what they're going to use the money for, I add that as well. But all of the information they give me, because they know the story in and out. And even though I read the scripts every time, because I love reading scripts, so it's awesome. And also it's really good to read the scripts, because then you really get to know the characters in the world and the world they inhabit, and the props that would be important for them and their personalities and the plot. I feel like it's really important to read the script so you can adequately present the world and the vision to the people, because, if not, then you could get it wrong. And but yeah, the filmmakers, the director, producer, writer, whoever shares with me the copy, and we start a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder with reference images that they pull, and then I add some that look like the ones they already selected. So there's this really awesome website, a free ad for this website called shotdeck.com, and it has high-res screen grabs of almost every film that you can think of or series, and it's really easy to find what you want. Like you can search genre or mood or color, or if it's a two-shot or it's a Dutch angle or whatever, and it's really an awesome resource for the pitch decks. And yeah, I mean, you were talking about how my pitch decks are different than some other ones that you have seen. And they are different because I've seen a lot of pitch decks that are just, an image, like a really beautiful image, still image of film that you might reference, right? And then text in the bottom or something like that. And it doesn't look like it belongs in the same world. It kind of just looks like a PowerPoint presentation. Very visually striking because of the image. But what I like to do with my pitch decks is really immerse the viewer in the world of the film. So I basically do these still lifes that are made from different sources. So it's a collage that I make in Photoshop that is kind of like a POV shot of what the character would be looking at. So, for example, if I did a pitch deck where the character was an illustrator that was traveling the world to find her birth mother. And so the cover page is her desk, and you can see an illustration that she made, some watercolors, and a plane ticket, and a DNA test, and then the title. So then kind of you get a little bit what's going to happen, right? And you feel like you are that character. And that's what I like to showcase, because it's fun. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever went to Disney World, I think, and when you're waiting in line, there was like a Spider-Man ride, and when you wait in line, you passed by the newspaper offices where Peter Parker worked, or his bedroom, and I always loved that. So that's what I try to convey in the pitch decks, as if you are there yourself.
Absolutely. You said that so eloquently. That is exactly what I felt when I looked at your pitch deck. I felt like I was in the world. Just all the little nuances that I don't think people think about. They think like, we'll just put a color background, then we'll put some text, and then maybe another one or a couple pictures. But it was really going into your world. When you read the script, do you ever read the script and then read their summary and say, that wasn't what I thought the movie was about? Do you ever like help them, or do you feel like, no, do you ever tweak what they write or suggest something, or do you feel like pretty much what you're getting is pretty good?
Yeah, sometimes I do suggest things, maybe being like, oh, you can make it a little bit shorter, or, maybe this doesn't describe something as well. And if it is, sometimes I see some spelling mistakes and I just fix it. We all need that editing sometimes. But mostly I trust what they send me. I feel like every script that I have worked with on creating a deck is really good. And if it's not good, then I'm like, I don't else, also, it's not that fun, right? But when it's a great story, I trust that they're going to be able to explain it too. Yeah, I trust them, and they trust me too. So yeah, beautiful working relationship.
Okay, so they send you references of pictures to put in. Do you use those, or do you go find others?
Sometimes I do use them, but most of the time I find higher res images, because I think not a lot of people understand that there's like low res and then there's high res, and the low res can look really pixelated. So, but also, I mean, Google Images has an amazing kind of like you insert the image and then it shows you higher res images or similar images. So it's really not that hard. But I definitely use their images as like a tone setter.
Right.
But I really like finding images, researching. I mean, I've worked as a researcher for a really big production designer. And so I think I've learned a lot of like the little, secrets of the research.
Yeah.
It's fun to just browse and be like, oh, this one is perfect for what I read. And also I think as a filmmaker myself, that helps because I understand that, sometimes you need close-up images, sometimes you need wide shots, like, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Yeah. When you're working with a client, are there typical questions that you ask them?
Yeah. I definitely ask what mood they're going for, and I definitely ask for some comparisons of other films because that really helps. I mean, it's just like that to understand. And I kind of give them, sometimes they know what to give me, but sometimes I give them a list of, what we would want to have. And when it comes time to do like the casting choices, sometimes they have already an idea or they already have the star signed in or something. But I usually ask them kind of like who they were thinking for the characters. And I suggest some people because it's also fun to, I mean, it's such a fun part of the process. Maybe it doesn't come out the way that I would make it in the pitch deck, which is fine. But it's like, like just the initial part of the make-believe that could maybe not be make-believe and actually become a reality. Yeah, I love that. I'm actually working on, I'm going to start working on a pitch deck for James.
Yes.
Who so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, his stories are so amazing. I'm just like,
I know.
How do you come up with these ideas?
I just rewatched Frankie right now because I wanted some like inspiration for the new film.
Yeah.
And it's just chef's kiss so good.
Yeah, he is. And that was a great movie. So was Bottoms.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it, but I will.
Oh my God, that was so good. Intense. Yeah, so I was also thinking, and it's the collaboration that you do with a filmmaker, which is probably so fun, like to see their world. And I was also thinking when you were saying, hey, I pick people, like they have their image of people, but sometimes when you probably read the character description, your mind goes to, oh, I could see that person in it, like that really, and then, maybe they weren't thinking about that. And also, I kind of think you never know who will be interested. Just because they're stars doesn't mean that they don't want to do these films, and especially if the writing's really good.
Exactly.
What's the platform that you use to create your AI photos?
So I used Midjourney for that, but I know that now ChatGPT also does image creation, which I was going to try today because I'm working with a production designer on creating some visual references. So I was going to try ChatGPT and see how it works, but I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know.
I think it's the paid version. It's the GPT-4. 3.5 is free, but once you do that, you have to pay. I don't know. It might not be that much, but I was seeing that and I was like, okay, am I ready to make the jump to start? Everything is subscription now. I mean, smart model for the business, but it's like all those subscriptions add up. Everything you have to have.
It's so much. I mean, it's subscription. Like I have Dropbox, Vimeo, then Midjourney, and this other thing, Runway, and the Adobe. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of dollars on subscriptions, which as a freelancer too, people sometimes think like, why is maybe a pitch deck so expensive? Like, can't they do it for less or blah, blah, blah. I could just do it for less myself. But it's all of the things that go to it, like the past, the education, and then all of the work that I've put, all the tutorials, all the subscriptions. It adds up. So as a freelancer, you get one-on-one communication and a really solid collaboration. But you have to spend a little bit more because, I'm a solo person. I have to pay my office and my, bills, et cetera, no health insurance, blah, blah, blah. Pros and cons.
Yeah. No, but also you, like you said, the expertise. You have the expertise. You are an artist, and also, I mean, you've done schooling, and you know the programs that a lot of people like don't know very well. I mean, not they don't know it to the extent they need to know it to create exactly what you're creating. So, do you mind telling us what are the applications you use to create a pitch deck?
Yeah, definitely. I use Adobe Photoshop
Uh-huh.
to create the collages, which are the background images. And they're all layered. I have source images from different places, and I just layered them and create the collage background. For me, I still use Photoshop to put the text because then I can edit it and it looks ingrained in the image. But it's not that ideal when I share it with other people because, pitch decks, they change all the time. You have a new character come in, or the actor's different, or maybe you switch up the location, or you want to add something. You want to keep it editable and you want to keep it easy for the filmmaker so they don't have to come to you for changes, right? So I have been inserting that into InDesign if they have access to InDesign. And if they don't, the image is easily inserted to Keynote or Pages or even Google Slides. And then they can do the edits themselves. And if it's something that maybe needs to be changed like image-wise, then they can come to me. But then, it gives them more flexibility to edit as they see fit.
Mm-hmm. And how much does a pitch deck typically cost? Are there different kind of layers to that? More pages? Is it by pages? Like, talk to me.
So the way that I have figured out to do it in the past, like by experimenting with it and doing my research, trying to like figure out what other designers charge, et cetera, I have figured out a way where the initial pitch deck is 5 to 10 pages. So that's my simple pitch deck. I have my regular rate is like 1K for something like that. Of course, friends and family, or I work a lot with indie filmmakers that a lot of time is like out of pocket. So I am very flexible because I am one of those filmmakers, so I understand how it is.
Right.
And then we go to a pitch deck that is like the basic pitch deck, which is 11 pages to 20. And that I do like 1,400, so not that much more. And then I don't remember what I called it, but like the special pitch deck, or like the really expanded pitch deck goes from 21 pages to 30 pages. And that is if, the filmmakers really want to add, like really break down the costs, or really go into, maybe if it's a series, it's more like a series Bible, and you can have episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. And that I think was like 2K. Yeah, I'm kind of just spitballing here because I don't remember my exact prices. I have it written down, but it kind of goes like that. And, there's always room for negotiation. Like, we all need to pay our bills, of course. But if a filmmaker is like, I really need a pitch deck, I really want you to do it for me, can we work out some sort of like trade agreement? Like, for sure. Like, what can you do for me? What if they're like amazing color graders? Or what if
Right.
they, are composers, and I need, there's ways also to just trade in this. We're all when working with our creatives, you never know what they can offer as well. So bartering is awesome, and you always like, some people always like an associate producer credit or something on IMDb. So there's always ways to like go around it and work together in the end. And if I'm very flexible, and I love doing this, so it's almost all the time that I'm going to say yes. But I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that out loud.
Cut. So when you're working with somebody, is there like a time parameter that you do for that money? And then do you charge more like, okay, but if you come back and do you have so many revisions? How does it work working with you?
Yeah. So At first, I read the script, they share with me some initial references, and then I design kind of like, not perfectly, more of like a mock-up, around 3 or 5 cover pages with different fonts, different kind of like some different ideas, and then a intro page, so they know what it's going to look like inside of the deck. And then, I send it to them, they look at it, they're like, I like this, I don't like this works, this doesn't, let's use this, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, we like hone in the style that they prefer, what type, what color palette. After we hone that in, I start going like collages, images, all this stuff, inlaying the text. And I just send in an initial kind of like 4 pages or something just to see if we're on the right track. They give me their notes. And from that, I just continue and I kind of finish the whole deck. And then I turn it in, they give me their notes, and I edit it, turn it back in. And ideally, from the third edit, like the third revision, then we have something that's solid. And I say like every revision after the third one is $50. So it also makes them kind of be like, oh, like I'm going to tell her exactly what I want initially, instead of, extending it and doing extra work that, so it's a good push for people too, to be like, okay, I only have 3 edits, and let's make them count. Because it could be a process that lasts, yeah.
I totally get that. Because people just keep wanting to make changes. So I think everybody kind of needs boundaries. They need to have the parameters of what they're working for. And so it's always good, everybody, to have boundaries and to know what those are. And then be very clear at the start, because then everybody knows. It's not like, what? After the 15th, okay, that's it,
Exactly. And that I really found that out through experience, kind of like realizing what my own boundaries are. And also, people work well with structure.
Yes.
People work well with deadlines and limitations. And, if it's kind of all up in the air, it doesn't really work.
It's chaos.
Exactly.
I know. Why don't we talk about, in closing, you wrote and directed a series called Eternal Inferno. What is the series about? How did you come up with the idea?
Okay. So it's been a long time. This has been a long time in the making, but I came up with the idea because Mexico is one of the biggest places for femicide in the world. Like gender-specific violence is really big here. There's a big culture of machismo, or like ownership of women and trans women, and it's horrible. Like, there's a lot of violence here. And every March 8th, worldwide International Women's Day, there's a huge march here. Huge. And everyone goes, and there's a lot going on. Some people are more, protesting in a way where it's like, my body, my choice, hear me out, no more deaths, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are some women that are really angry because the justice system is just not helping them. I mean, the criminals go free. There's really nothing. Like, women disappear and nobody really does anything about it. So they're angry. They're very angry. And what they do is they start to cause chaos. They start to deface, statues, like old historic statues that are there, and it's a complicated, controversial situation. A lot of people are like, they really seek revenge because the justice system isn't helping. No, they're not being heard. So they, because of that helplessness and that anger, they just decide to take matter into their own hands and get revenge. So I wanted to explore that in this series and see how trauma, like unprocessed trauma, can turn people into monsters themselves. And also, the an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. I really believe in that. So I wanted to explore that also in the series. And the series is about a girl who goes to a friend's house. She's having a really hard time. Like her ex-boyfriend leaked some nude photos of her online. And she decides to go to her guy friend's house and just get wasted. She's like, I don't want to think anymore. I just don't want to, she's in a bad place. I feel like we've done that. And a lot of times people are like, well, she was wasted. Like she asked for it, And I also wanted to be like, that's not how it works. But so she gets wasted and she passes out, and her friend sexually assaults her while she's passed out, which is horrible. You think you're in a safe place, and then it turns out you're not. And that happens all the time. So I wanted to explore that also, because I want people to have conversations about this where it's like, no, it's not right. Even if she was decided to do drugs, that's, not okay. I hate the whole victim blaming. But
I know, because if
right?
men had that happening to them, then we'd have a problem. And even I'm sure that there are men out there that are getting raped when they're drunk too, and by other men. They're just not talking about it. So
it's shameful.
And why would anybody want to have sex with somebody who's not even awake?
It's horrible. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like, I don't understand, but it happens, unfortunately. And, maybe a power thing, an insecurity thing, of course, that says a lot about that person that would choose to do that.
Yeah.
But then, so in the series, she goes, she's like, this is hopeless. I mean, trusted my friend, my ex. Nobody is here for me. And then when she decides that it's going to be enough, that she decides to quit life, she meets this girl that says, I can help you. I can get you help. I can help you get justice. Turns out, I mean, should I say it? I don't know if I want to spoil it.
I saw it. I saw your film. Thank you for sharing it. And I know where it was going. And I was being very careful about not saying what happens. But I mean, I thought your drug scene, just in particular, when she was drinking and just kind of out of it, I love the way you filmed it. It felt like we were in a state of, being drunk or on drugs, just the way that the world changes. Your world changes when you start doing those kind of things. So,
totally. It's a total, exactly. I mean, it's an altered state of consciousness, right? Like the sound changes, the colors change, even you feel different. But I won't spoil it, but I will say that there's a fantasy element to this story.
Yeah.
And it's like a horror fantasy vibe. But I won't spoil it because it's good.
Yeah. So where are you at with it? I mean, how many episodes in the series have you completed? And, what's the process?
Yeah, I just did the pilot, like the origin story. Me and my producer, Sam, have some ideas of where to take it. In episode 2, kind of like get more of the backstory of who these girls are that are going to help her get revenge, except, and add to that world that they come from, like the underground world of Mexico City. But I mean, we've done the pilot. I am working with a composer right now, a friend of mine, Chris Berle, who's amazing. We are working on some VFX stuff at the end. So it's almost done, but it's been a long process because it has, we fundraised at the beginning of the pandemic, which was hard. And then it took a long time to actually shoot because of, COVID. It just pushed everything. But then we did, for post, it's all coming out of pocket. So it's been a little hard to finish because I really want to pay people, so complicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you written out the rest of the series, or you just had the concepts, decided to do the pilot kind of for, funding and stuff? Do you know where it's going to go, or you're kind of like evolving where it could go?
Yeah. So I wrote a feature first about this story, a feature film. But then I realized that I think a series would work better for this, because then you can really go into the characters, which is what I love about series, and really explore their worlds and get into different themes. So I have some ideas, but I think Stephen King said, who's one of my favorite writers, he said that sometimes he starts writing knowing the ending, and sometimes he just writes and then the ending just comes to him. So I feel like that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I know where it's going, but I am so open for the ending to just come to me and be like, yes, that is it. So yeah, I think be open to whatever type of inspiration suddenly hits you. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to make a pitch deck for that,
Yeah,
for
right.
the series.
Yeah.
But it's also helped because I have the proof of concept for like the pilot, so they can see kind of like the tone, the difference in the VFX and the characters and all of that. So it helps. But yeah, pitch deck with like maybe what can happen in episode 2, episode 3, or like the season, how it will evolve, and what our ideas are for distribution. It would be amazing if Netflix Latin America got it because it's in Spanish.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a girl can dream.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what you do, because I think there's a lot there in that story to one. I think here's the other thing, like, and this is what I love about filmmaking, is that you can judge somebody by what you experience right here, right now, right? Like you meet somebody and they're revenge, right? But you don't know how they got there. I love that when films will present you and then you're like, jerk. And then all of a sudden you find out, and then you feel really bad that you even thought that way. And I think so many people get misjudged by just looking at them, versus when you find out their story and then you go, oh my God, I didn't know all that happened. And I didn't know that, So I just love that. I'm curious how you're going to evolve your main character. Like, in the end, I mean, she's crossed a line.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no going back.
Right. So how does she resolve it? How does she,
Yeah. Well,
we'll
see. I mean, I really feel like she decides to use her newfound powers to help other women. But there's not the foil, right? The villain, the other girl, the other woman that is all about revenge and death and violence. And I'm interested in her backstory, like what you said. How did she get there? Why did she get there? And how can we stop that from happening? Because we don't want people to get there. We don't want, it's prevention versus cleanup, right?
Right.
We always want to do prevention, and that takes, it might take a little bit more of like foreshadowing, but in the end, it just is so much better than having to deal with then the emotional and the psychological and the physical break that happens after that. And there's I don't know if you've seen Euphoria.
Yes.
Yeah. So remember that, which was kind of controversial, but Nate's dad, there was this whole episode of like his backstory, which was, it made me be like, oh, poor Caleb, right? What's his name? Poor Caleb. But also Caleb is a douchebag, right?
Right.
And he didn't really change. So,
yeah.
But it was nice to see that backstory and be like, yeah, that was hard. That did suck. And it doesn't excuse the person he is now, but it makes you understand, like, okay, yeah, if that happened to me, how would I act? I don't think, it kind of makes you question yourself in that way and be like, if I see people going through that, I'm not going to act like the other people did towards that person, because I don't want them to turn out like this character, right? I'm going to do the opposite. So I think it does help in that way. Caleb is a controversial character, but it does help, like you say, put yourself in somebody's shoes, or understand what could happen if you mistreat someone, abuse someone, or not let them be who they really are.
Yeah.
And it just kind of makes you it makes you make different choices.
Yeah. I mean, you hope for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, and like Caleb, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they can never get to the other side, or they don't know how. Maybe that's it too, is not everybody's got the, I don't know, I was going to say something, but I don't know how to say it, but just like, I mean, the depth, the working on the reflection. Some people are so angry that they can't let go of the anger to get to the other side, or don't know how. And maybe in their life, they just haven't had people that, I think it's a mixed bag. But yeah, it'd be interesting about your main character. Does she have redemption or not? Maybe that's just reality, is some people cross over the line and to never come back. And other people can cross over and then come back. So, yeah. So keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how you do that. Yeah.
You're making me think about new things. I'm like, yeah, maybe she doesn't. And the bad one becomes the good one, whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
Twist. That's even a good twist. Like, crossing over, yes, because sometimes that does happen, or they see enough that they just, I mean, I feel for military people who have gone to war and then come back. I mean, how the heck are they supposed to have a normal life when what they've seen, most people will never see in their lifetime? I can't even imagine that. And then come back and say, okay,
Yeah, and back to my regular life. This is me. I'm so happy-go-lucky like before. No, of course not. And that's also why, they need so much support. And people that have gone through traumatic events, like, people that go to war, people that have been on an accident or sexual assault or whatever, it is so important to have those areas of support. Like, I don't understand why leaders don't, the people that make financial decisions about our well-being, why they don't prioritize that. Like, it's just insane to me, really.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great. I loved hearing about your film and about pitch decks and stuff. So I wish you luck and keep us posted.
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, this was an awesome conversation. I had a great time talking with you. Anytime that it's film talk, it's so fun.
Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TammyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?